there is a huge growing of churches, especially in southern Ukraine, eastern Ukraine, in very dangerous places. I visited some of this church, for example, in Mykolaiv, in near Black Sea, near front line. There is church that it was like remain 100 members of this church. Many people left.
So 100 people left.
And came another 700 people and visit this church. 800 people now.
Welcome to Independence, the FIEC podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adrian Reynolds. I'm the head of National Ministries for the FIEC. I've just returned back from Poland, where I've been attending and serving at the European Leadership Forum. And one of the people I met there is a Ukrainian pastor, or at least a pastor who's been serving in Ukraine, a Polish man called Jaroslaw Lukasik. Indirectly, he's got a lot of connections with FIEC, not least because he's been working with the European Missionary Fellowship that many of our churches support in order to bring help in Ukraine. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask him about what's happening in Ukraine and what the Lord has been doing in the churches there. Now, Jaroslav is serving as a pastor in Ukraine because he was thrown out of a neighbouring country. He began church planting in Belarus, but he and his family were deported from there when the authorities found out what they were doing. And for the last decade or so, he's been church planting in Ukraine. So I started by asking him a little bit about what it's like to be a Christian in Belarus, another country that's been a story in this news item.
We're going to be talking about Ukraine. Belarus is a hard country to be a Christian as well.
Yeah,
and it kind of, we hear about it slightly on the news because we hear about how Belarus is a base for Russian soldiers or for Russian airplanes. But actually, as people pray for Ukraine, they should be praying for Christians in Belarus. It's a very hard country to be a Christian.
Yeah, I think even much more hard.
Is that right?
Yeah, because in Ukraine we have really religious freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, it was always since.
Whereas Belarus, that's not the
Soviet Union collapsed, and so in Ukraine you can be killed, but you are free.
Right.
In Belarus, there is situation like almost like during Stalin times. In Belarus, there is more than 2,500 political prisoners.
Really? Okay.
Several of them are members of a church.
So as churches pray for Ukraine, let's encourage them pray for your brothers and sisters in Belarus.
Absolutely.
Also. Okay.
And this is very, very strategic country, Belarus.
Why is that?
Because, even from geopolitical aspect, it's a main road from Paris to Moscow through Belarus.
Okay, it goes through Belarus.
It's also a place from where Russians can control Baltic area. Baltic countries.
Got you.
So, and also Ukraine, as we saw, because Russian soldiers came to Kiev from Belarus.
That's right. Yeah.
So
let's not forget Belarus. But we're here to talk especially about Ukraine.
Yes.
So you were deported from Belarus. What happened then?
And in several months we moved to Kiev. And for 15 years we are living there. In Ukraine. My kids grew up in Ukraine, so they even having Polish citizenship, they feel more Ukrainians.
Now, lots of us are sort of aware of what's going on in Ukraine because it's often in the news, still in the news, obviously, and we get parts of that. Lots of our churches in the UK have welcomed Ukrainians, although I'm humbled coming here to Poland actually just to hear how many more Ukrainians there are in Polish churches, and we think we're all very holy, welcoming 3 or 4, and then I meet a pastor and he says, there are 80 Ukrainians in the church. So we're trying to do something. So lots of people have developed a real heart and a love for Ukrainian people and want to know what's going on. So first of all, tell us, we hear the news a little bit. We hear about fighting for different cities. What's the current situation in terms of the Russian invasion and how things are? How do you see it at the moment?
First of all, I want to say that Ukrainians love Britain. love British people, and you're really aligned and really friends of Ukraine in every aspect. So I think it's.
We even hosted the Eurovision Song Contest. that is a deep love. I feel that's a really deep level of love. That's kind of you to say, Jaroslaw.
Yeah. So concerning war, it's cruel war. It's something like during the Second World War. So every day, hundreds of soldiers die, and many civilians as well. But soldiers it's so bloody situation.
So we hear about the fighting. We see a line on the map. The line on the map represents soldiers dying every day. We mustn't forget that.
Every day, very massive.
Yeah.
Russians and Ukrainians as well.
Yeah.
And the future is uncertain. I think this is the very, how to say, the most hard aspect of living during this war, all this uncertainty.
So you can't really see what's going to happen next, which way it's going.
So future is like. So we hope only for God's wonders, miracles. We saw it. I can say you that I was not sure that Kiev will be not taken in February.
The Russian forces were right in Kiev, on the outskirts of
Almost,
Kiev. I think
suburb Kiev.
We forget that because of where the lines are drawn on the map now. We forget that when the war first started, there were huge Russian advances first of all, and it looked as though Kiev might be captured.
Absolutely, and every historian or analytics of this situation, they use word that Ukraine had a luck. It was a lot of luck in this.
Okay.
So we understand.
Well, we know what
who
luck
is behind this.
That's right. Yeah, and yet the war grinds on. I mean, it doesn't seem to me. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Looking in from the outside, I can't see that one side particularly looks stronger than another or has better tactics than another. It seems to be like that, almost like the First World War, not the Second World War, where the line doesn't seem to move very much.
Yeah.
Is that
like
a
in
fair assessment?
Verdun or Soma?
Yes, exactly like some of those World War I battlefields. Is that right, or is it more dynamic?
In Bakhmut, there is several months almost not moving the front line. So it's in the same place,
right?
So I think Russia is a huge country. You see it,
yes,
and they have a big army. They have a big potential to recruit new soldiers. But Ukrainians have
fighting for your country.
Yes. They have a real patriotism and all this power of defending their families, which is very. I don't know. I'm proud about many of my friends that they have such courage to voluntarily go to army and stay there and risk their life and their health. So it's amazing.
Yeah. And how has this conflict affected Christians and churches? I mean, obviously, there's an obvious, men are leaving and going off to fight and being killed, as you reminded us. So what are some of the ways that churches are being affected by what's going on?
I believe this is a time of exams for the church.
Okay.
Yeah, so we prepare ourselves during more than 30 years for this moment.
In what way? Just explain to us what you mean by that.
Well, it's time of darkness.
Okay.
Yeah, when the war came to people's homes, people feel despair, people need hope, people need comfort, people need real help in every aspect. So I believe that the light is for such a moments. So Jesus said about us, "You're light of the world," not because we are better than other people. We are not. But he chose believers. He chose some people in the church that they can serve people in moment of the need. So this moment is now, and this is difficult time in every aspect. It's people need psychological help, aid, like. So the church provide counseling.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's not. I mean, we'll talk about this in a moment. It's not just physical help.
Yes.
That's needed. Food and clothing, and it's actually spiritual, emotional help that people need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are needs in every aspect of life. So first, people deal with fear, with despair, with hopeless.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the moment, the first moment where I believe that people who know Jesus, who believe in eternity, believe in happy end of this world, they are called to help people. So word of comfort. And by the way, people in Ukraine want to pray. They ask how to pray. For example, we have a Christian Open Academy. It's our educational program for networking people, doing together something, on base of this Christian Open Academy. And one time, I remember when it was announced by every denomination that 24 February will be fasting, the day of fasting and prayer. National day of anniversary of the war. And in one business place, a lady who studied at our academy, he announced this, that we will pray and we will fast. And non-believers said, we want to join you. Show us how we can pray, how to do this, how to fast. And so it was very interesting story. So people want to pray, and even people who don't go to church, unbelievers, especially pray for Ukraine. So even president or other people from government, they talk about God, about hope. They quote scripture. It was not before the war. So there is a huge spiritual and, let's say, psychological need, and the church tried to answer, to respond to this need. There are other needs, like for example, when Russians came, it was like a huge flux of people. It was a need of evacuation. So many people risking their lives or their freedom. They evacuated people from zones of battles.
So the population is really redistributed. In terms of where people live.
Several millions of people left eastern or southern parts of Ukraine. They moved to the west, to the central western Ukraine, or to other countries. It was millions of people. It's a huge population.
And you're beginning to describe their extraordinary opportunities as well for the gospel.
Sure.
So it's not simply that the church is providing help and assistance, showing kindness, which of course we're called to do as Christians. We want to be kind and generous and help other people. But actually there are great opportunities for the gospel to take hold in people's lives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I can say that especially in some regions, there is a huge growing of churches, especially in southern Ukraine, eastern Ukraine, in very danger places. I visited some of this church, for example, in Mykolaiv, near Black Sea, near front line. There is church that it was like remain 100 members of this church. Many people left.
So there's 100 people left.
And came another 700 people. And visit this church, 800 people now. And the same in Sloviansk, for example, also in the Donbass near or other towns in this eastern front line. I don't know why it's happened, especially that we can say that no, it was not that every pastor, every leader, they were so courageous, and many of them left. They left in the Western countries. But anyway, people came, new leaders grew during this time.
So let me understand. It's not only are the churches growing. There's a hunger for people to connect with church and to connect with the gospel, but new leaders are being raised up to replace leaders who have left.
Absolutely. It's very interesting because sometimes you look to people, oh, this is just ordinary people, no something extraordinary skills or something like this. But when the war started, like new people appear from one moment. Other people disappear somewhere. So therefore I said that the war is a really exam. So and especially in social work, church is doing very well.
So providing practical help,
food, providing help for people, evacuate people, or making shelters, rebuilding destroyed buildings. It's a lot of great work that the church is doing, and people recognize this. I heard many times just from regular people from province, they said, if the church doesn't help us, we will be lost, because the government or NGO don't work like the same way. So it is happening. I believe that the church needs to work better in public life. I mean, in sense of being the voice of church, the voice of Christian voice need to be more hearing during this time. Like I remember, for example, during time of solidarity in Poland, when communism was falling.
I'm old enough to remember all of that.
So it was very powerful voice of the church, even Catholic Church here. So I was like shaped by these times. So I expect something like this being in Ukraine. So we need more our voice in media.
So let me see if I've understood that. The church locally is very busy, active, doing lots, but the church nationally has lost its voice.
I think the voice is too weak. Even comparing with what the church really do and what is like known by people, I think this proportion is not just. But so in this sense, so this is very important. And also there is very important for churches, for church leaders to understand times, to understand how history is moving now, because we are really we see the history. We watch how history is created. Every of these dates which we read in media or are like we see this, it will be in how to say, our kids will study in schools.
They will,
like
that's right.
dates. So this is very, very important time when you see shaping of history. So this is very important for church leaders to understand the principles, how it moves, what is right, what is wrong. So therefore, it was some questions like, for example, aspect doctrine of just war or pacifism. How to be. In this
so when we're talking about those sorts of topics in the UK, they're always theoretical. Should a Christian join the army? It's always very theoretical. But for people in Ukraine, it's real. It's not theory; it's history. It's real.
It's very ethical. It's very ethical problem, because if you live in peaceful time, more ethical sound that you don't join army. But when you live in the situation when you see killed people, you see raped women, you see all these horrible things that happen.
For sure.
So to say, oh no, we have not deal with this, I think it's an ethical question.
Do Christians in Ukraine disagree on some of these questions?
Well,
or is it largely unity?
Yeah, it is a very good question. So I have my lectures I do in many places, or sermons about just war.
Yeah.
So, and I see that pacifism is really nice. It's very nice position, but it's nice position in some aspects of life, but not generally.
It's nice in this part of Poland, where you're not facing an invading army.
Yeah, but even like in case of Martin Luther King or Gandhi or other situation, it's good. But in confronting during such fear. War like we are here, we have here, I don't think so. But so on individual level, people make this choice. Okay, I don't want to take game, or gun, sorry, or something like this. But I don't think that Christians can judge somebody that's. They fight. I think it's immoral.
So actually, Christians are learning not just about themselves, but about how to live together. To bear with one another, even when there are differences. It's very interesting that I think you're right. You're talking about the time of exam, of testing. It's in the fire, isn't it, that we're refined as Christians? And I think sometimes we're scared of the refiner's fire, but actually that's the Lord shaping us and making us more like he wants us to be. So there's something to rejoice in there, even in the great difficulty. That's very interesting.
Yes, I think it's something interesting that we during this war we see real evil. Living in modern world, we forgot about real evil.
Right.
We have some imagination of the world, of society, sometimes not real, and it came to us, and maybe it's not just for 1 year. Maybe it's for a long time, and we will see other I don't want to be a bad prophet. I don't want.
No.
So I hope that the Lord is good and he's almighty. But who knows in which times we will live.
Now, you've been working really hard, coordinating some of the effort and going around with help. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in particular, Jaroslaw.
So we are focused on like several aspects of our life. So I mentioned already about the Christian Open Academy.
Yes, yep.
So it was initiative that, by the way, created from the Eastern European Leadership Forum.
So part
it's
of
very
the European
linked
Leadership Forum
to the European Leadership Forum. So, but we created this during pandemic. It's an online program for helping Christian leaders to be involved in public life. How to be involved in public life. How to be effective in public life. So it was, we had more than 1,000 people went through this Christian Open Academy, and many people give this testimony that it helped them to be prepared to the war. But on base of the Christian Open Academy, the goal is to create a network of people who can do some practical projects. So therefore, many of our students there are doing chaplain ministry, for example. Other they work with kids, with education, which is really great opportunity, because you can imagine after pandemic and during the war, education is in horrible condition now. Kids don't attend school sometimes. So therefore, based on churches, by the way, we started some project like helping children with education on base of churches. So Christian teachers help them with mathematics, with languages, with history, other stuff. So it is very good stuff for evangelization and making impact to parents, to kids. So this is doing by this environment of Christian Open Academy, and also other projects like humanitarian aid, prayer movement. Yeah, so we organize in different cities interdenominational prayer movements, prayer meetings. I'm sorry, printed 1.5 million prayer books, different prayer books, how to pray, and also like helping with refugees. Yeah, all this system.
You've produced a video which we've seen here at the European Leadership Forum, and I've asked if we can have the video, which has been kindly given to us. We'll put the link in the bottom of the notes.
Oh, thank you.
So just a little short video, but just gives a flavour of what you've been doing. It's just, I found it very moving to watch it, just to see the church in action in all kinds of different ways, whether it's praying, whether it's helping, whether it's the chaplaincy work with the army. Just to see the church at work is really... It's very moving, isn't it? It's a moving thing. Can I ask you two questions to finish, Jaroslaw? The first is, lots of our churches are hosting Ukrainian families, or women especially. How can we think about that well? What's the best way that we can care for Ukrainians we've got staying with us for the moment? Well, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that question, so I'm sorry. I've just thrown it at you, but it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the answer need be various. So we it's like several points depending on the situation. Because, for example, you can have women with kids. Their husbands remain in Ukraine. I think it will be very good if they can meet, because can imagine like 14-15 months not seeing each other. It's very dangerous for marriage.
So, for example, a church could help towards the transport cost and those sorts of things. Yeah,
I think it would be nice.
Yes,
if in some place they can meet. I think even like their families are more important. Even their I'm sorry for what I'm saying now. Even for their physical safety.
Yes. Yeah.
This is more important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, children need to see their fathers. And
So this is one aspect. Help them in this aspect, because I saw several families, they disappear.
Right.
Now, as a marriage. So, and it is very good if people cannot depend on your help, can find jobs, can integrate in your society. Again, depending on what is their calling. But maybe their calling is coming back to Ukraine. Yeah, in Ukraine there is war, but also you can live normal life. Yeah, it is.
So we need to be asking questions. We need to not be making assumptions that everyone is the same, everyone's needs are the same. It's just like being a pastor. Yeah, everybody is different.
Absolutely.
And we don't just pastor a big group of people, we pastor individuals, don't we?
Exactly.
We want them to flourish.
Exactly.
That's really helpful.
See people, Also, many of them really refugees people, because we deal with some refugees in Poland, so partly we work with Poland, mostly in Ukraine, but also in Poland. So many of them really they experience horrible things. So my wife is involved in all this psychological care about women. So she didn't tell me stories, but generally she said me, you cannot imagine what these women survive. So many of them really need special care. Special, sometimes even professionals. Psychologists. So look at these situations. But I think the most important now is Ukraine, the victory in Ukraine, the condition of society in Ukraine, overcome apathy, overcome hopeless, and every aspect. So really, what I said in the beginning, that people in Ukraine love Britain. It's you cannot imagine how feel people who are attacked by so huge, so big enemy, and they feel support from other side.
Good.
They cannot say, because different nations behave in different way, you know.
Course, yeah.
So Britain, in this sense, is a really great friend, and I know it helped millions of people, even just for their soul.
Knowing,
knowing
this. Yeah. Let me ask you one more question, which is perhaps a difficult question in some ways, because I think we look at our news and we think Ukraine good, Russia evil, and obviously in terms of the regimes and the fighting, that's true. But there are good people in Russia.
Sure.
There are evangelical brothers and sisters. We mustn't forget them, must we? It's hard actually to be a good Bible-believing Christian in Russia, increasingly so under the current regime. So just give us an insight how we could pray for our Russian brothers and sisters who must feel, I can't imagine what they feel, conflict, difficulty. They only get certain news, don't they? So they don't hear the truth. How can we pray for them?
Oh yeah, I think they are in very difficult condition. So I prefer to live on front line than living in Russia now.
Really?
Because of all this atmosphere and pressure. But anyway, I can say that Russian Christians, we can like divide them to 3 groups.
Okay.
One group it's a small one, is a group of people who openly say to the governments, to their society that they are wrong.
Okay.
Yeah?
Which is a very brave thing to do.
Very brave people. Very brave people. Yeah, because the regime is horrible now.
Yeah.
So they are a small number of people, and I believe they save an honor of Russia generally, this nation.
Yeah.
Another group of people are people who are in silence. They just are in silence. I don't judge them because I understand.
You can understand. They're keeping their heads down.
Yeah, especially, for example, they are church leaders. They care about their communities. They're in silence. But there is a big group of people, really big group of Russian Christians, evangelicals, who support Putin, who support war.
Okay.
And this is a tragedy when like even denominations divided.
Right. Okay.
They cooperate with Ukrainians. Some Christian ministries was both in Ukraine and in Russia. Yeah. They divide, and they feel horrible condition, horrible feelings now. Yeah, because many times near Putin stay heads of evangelical denominations. They give speeches, support regime, other stuff. So this is a big problem. This is a huge problem. So therefore, we need to have at least 3 types of prayers for 3 types of believers in Russia. So pray for repentance for this third one, because I cannot imagine how to be saved in this situation. I don't know.
Thank you. That's helpful, and it's good to hear that aspect. I in a way, the big prayer we can pray is, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
Absolutely.
On, even, we can pray Putin would be saved. I mean, wouldn't that be? Lord, please have mercy. Wouldn't that be great? So, Jaroslaw, thank you so much for what you're doing. We really honour you for that, and thank you so much for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending a bit of time with us. That's really helpful, just to get an insight to what's happening. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. This has been Independence. If you'd like to rate or review, that will help us, and we'll catch up again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Church of Britain. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jaroslaw.